Calvin Castine at the Clinton County Fairgrounds. It's the 12th day of July, 2008. And we have Judy Castine pinch hitting behind the camera this morning. We appreciate her coming down on this bright and beautiful Saturday morning here in the North Country. Gordy Little planned to be here, but he had a death in the family, so he is unavailable. And a lot of programs that Gordy and I can do, we can always reschedule, but when there's an event going on, you guys probably wouldn't have rescheduled this the next week if we asked you to, would you?
No, we don't have a rain date, Calvin. It's now or never.
And we are talking to Mr. Fran Bushy.
Yep.
And you're from the Chazy area?
Chazy, yeah.
And you're involved in this. What's the official title of what this
The
is?
Champlain Valley Antique Engine and Tractor Association. It's quite a mouthful.
I knew it back when it was just the Champlain Valley Antique Gas Engine.
Right, right. But then, you know, you've got to involve tractors in it too eventually, because that seems to be the stronghold up here. That's what a lot of people have.
Well, that's where a lot more interest in is,
Right.
you know, and I think
Right.
the gas engines there's still a few around, but I think most of the popularity here has become the tractors.
Right, right. And the tractors, you can do quite a bit with them. You know, you can have live demonstrations, and a lot of the local people can look back and say, yes, we had that on the family farm. You know, they see things that they had in the 40s, 50s, 60s. You know, a lot of reminiscing here.
As there should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you've got the proper hat on. I agreed to talk to you when I saw the John Deere cap.
But it can turn red real quick if I have to, though.
Jack Dragoon shows up, you'll put a red one on.
I got one in the truck. Yeah.
But I want to make sure you're facing the camera here. I want to get my full stomach in the camera, so I need you to be facing that way, Fran. You have an antique, I know, an antique truck. You're involved with the car collecting also.
Right. Well, I have a 64 Ford pickup truck that I like to travel around with and do the car shows and stuff with. I kind of like anything old.
Yeah.
It started off with engines and tractors, but you know, you see other things you like along the way too. So,
you know, and the scary part for me is I graduated in 1964. Now we can call that an antique and old and stuff. It's
classic. You can call that a classic, Calvin,
okay.
if you feel better.
Okay, well, it's not antique.
Yeah.
It's just a classic. Okay, the history of the club here. I know.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about the history.
Yeah.
It started off 18 years ago. Timmy Lincourt is the one that approached me from Rouse's Point. He knew I kind of liked old stuff like that, and he was telling me that a group of people in the area have gotten together and they wanted to form an engine club. And they looked around, and the first place that they could come up with to hold a show that they could afford was Westport. And so that's where they went the first time, and it was just a handful of people that went down there. A few from Plattsburgh, Altona, and some of the locals from down in Westport area. And it just grew from there. And we were at the Westport Fairgrounds, I think, for the first 9 years. And then it got quite large. The show started to grow, you know, the members and everything else that were coming. And we decided we wanted to try to get closer to Plattsburgh. So then we looked into Clinton County Fairgrounds, and it was kind of more centrally located here too, you know. People come from western New York, Vermont, Canada, southern areas. So this seemed to be a pretty good
you
spot.
get the Franklin County people got to drive way down to Westport.
Right. So we held our 10th show here, and we've been here ever since.
Yeah, we Judy and I went down and did one of the shows there in Westport, and met a fellow who collects barbed wire.
Right.
Right. It reinforced in us that it exists. Somebody's collecting it somewhere.
Exactly. It's amazing. Every year, different exhibitors will come from different areas with a variety of things. Even door hinges, barn door hinges, barbed wire. A lot of people have been here with nice kitchen displays of hand cranked devices where they're all electric today, like coffee grinders and meat grinders, and anything that you just touch a button on today you take for granted. Well, you had to do that by hand, you know, back in the day. And a lot of those old relics, you know, they look nice when they're polished up and displayed again.
Yeah, I have no complaints about what people keep them out of the bar. What the heck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now as I recall, there was a couple of Sartwells, I think a father and son, that were involved when Tim called Bob Venn and I think we were probably introducing the the first get together, or if not the first, maybe the second. I think it was the first. The little promo thing down in Rouse's Point, and I think the Boruses were involved too. Vernon and Marie, right?
The founding members were Scott Sartwell and his father Merrill, I think.
Could be. Sounds.
And the Boruses. The Boruses from Altona, Marie and Vern.
Yeah. They
were into it heart and soul, and really got the ball rolling on it. And Tim Lincourt, and then a few others around too. But that small group there pretty much was the core of the club, that got it going, and it just snowballed from there.
Any idea roughly how many members are?
Well, our membership is about probably 150, 160 now, and it varies. We pick a few up, lose a few, but it steadily grows from year to year.
So they pay dues to be a member?
Right. We have that's pretty much one of the main financial support of the club is the membership and stuff like that to help out. Yeah, you pay dues. It's $12 for a family membership.
Wow.
That's a lot of money, isn't it? But you can't buy 3 gallons of gas for that anymore either. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. I can't imagine people being able to afford $12.
Right. Now we also would like to thank a lot of our sponsors that help us out here too. In the past, we've had Jack Dragoon, Giroux Brothers, a lot of the local farm supporting type businesses have done a lot for us too to help keep us going, because to pay the fare and the insurance and everything else that it costs to operate here, it's hard to collect that with just a single weekend show.
So that's why you got to be ready to put that red hat on. If
right. I can do a quick change like you've never seen, Calvin.
You probably got the underoos that have Case IH written on them.
No, but I'll bet I could find a pair fast.
And we better mention the current officers, because as I was driving in, your president introduced himself to me.
Right. The current president is Sam Sorrell. He just came on board this year. And the vice president is Dave Babby. Dave was the president last year. And his dad, Leeward, and him do a lot here. They bring in a huge demonstration in this back field of combines and thrashing machines, and it's a lot of it is local equipment that's been pulled out of barns that have been in storage for a long time. So they do a great job. And then our treasurer is Duke Gepner. He's been on board for quite a while now. And our secretary is Karen Akey. She just came on board too. And they've been members from the past. It's kind of nice. You try to, every couple of years, at least turn over the workload of the officers to other members, rather than make one small group continue with it.
Right, and it makes people feel they're part of it too, if they're able to have the power of being president. You must have had an office at one point, or not?
Right, I was the president for a 6-year run.
And they finally said, get rid of him, finally.
Yeah, you got to get him out of there. He's making us work too hard. But we have a really great volunteer group here too that shows up with no questions asked for the setup, and help throughout the weekend, and then cleaning up at the end too, because we have to leave the grounds the same way we found them. Make sure the trash is picked up and everything's put back.
A little scrap
we
of paper.
do seem to do pretty well with a lot of the help there.
Yeah, and as I was driving in, of course, Karen Akey's the one that's been calling me, making sure I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
And as I was driving in, Leo and some other folks were setting up for the tractor pull over there.
Right.
Leo.
Well, what we have to start with is a kid's pedal tractor pull over there. It's a pedal tractor with a little transfer sled behind it that looks like a miniature version of what large tractor pulls are. We try to keep a few activities to keep the kids interested too, because they look at some of this stuff, they really don't know what they're looking at, or may not be as interested
not
as
much
you
nostalgia.
And I would be, so
nostalgia doesn't exist for a kid.
Right. So we've created a few things for the kids to do while they're here throughout the weekend too. Yeah.
Well, that's a good idea, and you got to keep that young blood coming and keep their interest.
You want to keep them interested, and it's not that difficult, Calvin.
Yeah, no.
You bring some kids in here and sit them on the tractors, take them for a ride around, and they're glued to it.
Oh yeah, you jump on one of those old Farm All H's or a John Deere B and go for a ride. And
I think today a lot of people would rather see their kids in this activity and sitting up on a tractor rather than pushing a keyboard on a couch. That's what they're all doing now.
I know.
See too much of that.
Tough to get them to move.
Right.
Okay, well, you are going to be our tour guide.
Okay.
We're going to take a look around here, and all the folks who were didn't man's fault.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take full responsibility. But
Obviously, we are not going to be able to talk to everybody and see everything. We're just going to try to get a little view of what's happening here. Hopefully, the Babby family will show up. I was here, I think, maybe 2 years ago, and we covered a little bit of that. Then I got distracted and ended up with a full tape and never finished up. But we do hope to get a little bit of that, but not if it's too late, because my camera person has other things to do on her day off.
mm-hmm.
You understand that kind of
Oh yes.
situation. That. And anything else we have to say, we'll say along the way. Let's get going, friend.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay, we are back on, and we've grown.
Yes.
I've grown a little bit, and we've got an extra person here, friend. Right?
Yes, we have Dale Bombard, our past vice president, and he's got a couple of nice items here. He's got a special tractor, a John Deere, that burns a fuel other than gasoline, so we'll let him tell us about that.
All right, come on in here, Dale.
This is, it's a 19...
Where are you from first?
Oh, Saranac, New York.
Saranac.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Don't hide behind me here.
It's a 1956 John Deere 720 LP, and it was factory
Okay.
set up.
That's good, so Judy can see it here.
And
you see it?
yeah.
The green one there, Judy. She doesn't know what a John Deere or a farm
Yeah, it
all
was-
is. You know, she's a big city girl from Rouse's Point.
Yeah. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
From the factory, the LP equipped it to run LP gas. Back in the 50s, LP gas was like 3 to 4 cents a gallon. It was a byproduct, you know.
Yeah.
God, if we could only go back today. But anyway,
Hell, I pay 10 cents a gallon.
yeah, it stayed in existence from around 1950 to probably 1963, 64. Then they quit making LP gas tractors. Diesels come into being, and they were much more efficient and stuff like that. But this tractor here was originally sold in Louisiana,
Uh-huh.
and it worked the crops down there, and then it left there and went out to Kansas for 8 or 10 years. Then it went back to North Carolina, and that's where I purchased it, out of North Carolina.
So are there any up our way at all?
There wasn't any. There's starting to be a few around here now. To my knowledge, I have never seen, growing up on a farm, I never saw an LP gas tractor. I'm not saying there wasn't any around, because every time you start making a statement like that, you realize you're wrong. But I hadn't seen any.
Well,
anyway.
make that statement, then somebody will come up and...
Somebody's reminded me
Yeah.
that I was wrong.
Right.
People always love to prove us wrong, Calvin.
Oh, yes.
All the time.
Yes.
Well, I'm great at giving people reason to to contradict me.
No, I enjoy them. They're a very safe tractor. People are afraid of them because of the compressed gas.
Yeah.
But actually, they're safer than regular gas tractor. Once you get to know them and you realize what you got. They're rare. There was 230 of these made.
Oh, so they weren't...
That's nationwide. And in existence today, they figure probably in the vicinity of maybe 100 of them.
wow.
Because a lot of them were converted to regular gas when LP gas started coming up. And then they were used for parts tractors, some of them. So they don't figure there's probably more than 100 of them there now. And they're really nice, smooth, clean running.
Okay, this is yours then? Do you use it besides just for show, or do you...
It's mostly show and pull. We pull with them.
Okay.
Yeah, all the tractors that I have around here, we use them on weekends. There's 12 pulls a year, and we used to make them all. With the price of fuel now, you kind of pick and choose and go to the closer ones a little bit.
You were saying that last year. This year, it's...
This year, it's twice as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Now, you've got a red shirt on. Let me see what it says. At a Farm All International Harvester Collectors Club. You've got a guy, John Deere cap, but
Yeah.
you own a Deere and a Farm All.
My blood kind of runs red from early
Mine
on.
runs red too, but
I enjoy the John Deere tractors too. I've kind of come in. My son got me started in John Deere. He's the one like them. So we kind of get into those. And right now I've got 13, and
well,
probably it's about half and half as far as the
how do you
number of each.
You got more than my buddy Leeward has? Or?
No. Leeward has got a lot more than that. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, he's a fine collector, but he's all red.
Yeah, and Tony Trombley's all green.
And Tony's all green. There's no doubt about that.
There's another guy in Shazy who won't let me look at his collection, though. He's got a good collection there, and
Lee and Armin Dupree.
Dupree's, yeah.
Oh yes.
But they won't let us. They won't let us in to look at it.
I've called Lee on a few occasions just to find out some incidentals about John Deere's. The guy's fabulous.
Very knowledgeable.
Very knowledgeable individual.
Yeah. Fran going to demonstrate here?
Yeah, this is a Farmall M. It's a 1941 model. The same year I was born.
Wow. Wow. That's why you got it? Or just
I set it up as my shop tractor. I use this around the shop on a
But
daily
did you want it
basis.
because it was the same age
Because,
as you were?
well, that was kind of the reason for the tractor. Then the loader came into being after.
Okay, so what's going to happen with this loader here?
This is what they can call a high lift loader. They were quite popular out in the Midwest. They were used originally for stacking hay. And now they're, I was able to get a hold of this. This was owned by a gentleman from Champlain that I never met before. Mr. Bayshard.
Okay, there's lots of Bayshard.
He was 100 years old when he passed away. He ran a little dealership.
Now Bedard. It wasn't Bedard.
Bedard.
Raymond Bedard, yeah.
Yeah, Raymond.
Okay.
And when you level that bucket out right there,
Come on this way.
it's exactly 20 feet.
Exactly 20 feet up.
Yeah.
Now, I would think that would be awfully dangerous to have a load.
If you had a heavy load up at that height, yes, it could be dangerous. There's no doubt
Especially
about that.
without anything on top of your head.
Yeah, you want to make sure you got to use a lot of common sense with a loader that'll go this high, because most of them you're within that range right there. You don't end up going that high, but the possibility is there. It makes nice scaffolding to work on building repairs and stuff like that.
I'll take your word for that. There's no way in heck they'd get me up there in that 20 feet in the bucket.
The height doesn't bother me too much, so I'm kind of lucky.
Well, it's one thing of being on a ladder, another thing being up there in that bucket.
Right. Yeah. And this other tractor here, this is a 450 Farmall, and it was a locally owned tractor from Saranac. Raymond Lavarnway was a big farmer there. He farmed it for years and years. That was one of his tractors for years. And I picked it up just when he was going out of farming and restored it all. It's been a very nice tractor.
You've been gone, what, 6, 7 years now, right?
I purchased that in 1994, which was 14 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And he had already sold his cows, but the machinery was still there. He hadn't sold the machinery yet. But that's just when he was going out of farming.
Right.
So I kind of like that one there because it's a local tractor. I kind of like if I can pick up tractors from the local area. I like that. Yeah.
Okay, and the 300 next, that yours?
The 300 next to it is mine, and that one there came out of Moore's. There was it wasn't any special tractor. It wasn't a family tractor or anything like that. It was just something that I ran across and decided to finish it up.
Looks like it's in good shape.
It's got the complete quick hitch attachment, which IH was known for back in the 50s and 60s. And it's got the front frame weights on it, which are a little bit on the rare side.
Now, when did the International Farmall go from the letters to the numbers, the M's and the H's?
The H's and the M's went through 1954. The Super M, Super H's were in 54. Then in 55 they went to the 300s and 400s, and in 57 they went from the 300 and 400 to 350 and 450.
But they went to the numbers.
In 56, actually 54, when they left from the M and went to the number series. And then he went, and of course, 465, 66, 60. They went to 6 cylinders then. Supposedly more efficient tractors. Easier to handle.
Yeah, and it probably took a whole pile of executives sitting around for days coming up with that.
And they
it's not an M now; it's a 400.
Yeah, they really. And when they went to the 465, 60s, they didn't do quite as much research as they should have done with them. They had a few problems with them at that time, and that was kind of the start of the demise that started International going downhill a little bit.
But they're back. Ask Jack.
Oh yeah, they're back. Yep, Farmall is back.
Now, in Saranac, you grew up in Saranac, did you?
No, I grew up in Ellenburg.
Ellenburg. Oh, okay. So Chiltons, you dealt with the Chiltons.
Oh yeah, we bought all our equipment from Chilton Brothers up in Ellenburg when my dad was farming it.
Because Ryans were in Saranac.
And Ryans was in Saranac. Yeah. And then in 1966, when I went in corrections, I couldn't see crossing the mountain every day. to go to work.
So you moved.
So I ended up buying a home down in Saranac and stayed. We'd go over the mountain once a week to visit or whatever, but we didn't have to.
Well,
do
there's
it
still a
every
few
day.
Lebombards left in Ellenburg.
Oh, there's a lot of them left up in
Some of them even wrestle.
My brother was a big wrestler back in the 60s. Yeah, we had a good. It's a nice town. I enjoy it. My mom is still alive. We go back up there and visit often. It's changing now. There are people from all over the country living in a small town in Ellenburg. We used to know every person that lived in that community and where they lived. And now I don't think I could pick out 10%.
Well, the scary part, and Fran, you're probably in the same boat with this too, is you look in the newspaper when they have the land transfers.
You don't recognize
the people who are buying it, let alone the ones that are selling it. So who are these people?
Yeah. Hey, you were born, brought up in a small town, and it's changing all over. It's not just one little town of Ellenburg or Saranac. It's all over.
Are we going to put up with these people moving in on us like this, Fran? What are we going to do here?
Well,
interlopers.
They've got more money than we do, so I don't stop them.
That's the big thing. They did a survey in
Don't pay our taxes, right?
in Shazy Lake a couple of years ago, and I believe they said they're down to either 4 or 5 local people that own camps in Shazy Lake. It was all local people at one time.
Oh, sure.
Now most of them are Montreal, New York City. They're from, and they've got money, so they're moving in. They're paying good bucks for them, and the local people are just on their way out when it comes to that. It's hard to make the big executive money up here that these people make in Montreal and New York
Well,
City.
unless you work for corrections, and
Well, even then,
you're on par with the top executives across the country.
We're at least able to pay our fuel.
That's not going to be a laughing matter this winter.
It won't be really. We laugh about it a little bit because it doesn't do
You
any
either
good.
laugh or you cry.
Yeah,
so.
if you cry, then you're in trouble. So you might as well keep a little smile on your face anyway.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us, Dale? I know you got to be selling tickets here at 10.
This is pretty good.
2 minutes before.
I appreciate it, and
We appreciate you
pleasure
chatting with
doing
us.
it.
It was a welcome relief from talking with Fran. So we
I can
appreciate-
imagine. Thanks an awful lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
It's all right. It's all right. Oh, we are on. Judy is pointing that finger at me, the one that says we're on. She also tells me,
I wasn't sure what that meant.
Stop that. This time it meant we're on the air. All right, let's back up here. You call these crawlers? I thought we were going to look at worms when you said that. What are you talking about here, Fran?
Well, these tractors they're known as crawlers because they have tracks on them, so they go slower and they crawl, so they're known as crawlers.
Yeah. Generically, we'd call them bulldozer type of things,
Right.
but bulldozer is a name, just like
Right.
Scotch tape is. And,
Right.
You know.
Right. Exactly.
So this first one, this little one here, looks like something from the movie Wall-E that's out now and popular. What is this little one?
Well, I'm not certain on the name on that, but that is like a small landscaper homeowner type dozer that the average person could have bought back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s for homeowner and landscape work. And it's just got a small air-cooled engine in it, but for the size that it is, it can actually do quite a bit of work. It'll push quite a bit. And there's quite a few of those around. Some are Canadian built, American built. The tough thing is a lot of those companies have been out of business for so long that parts are extremely difficult to find.
Yeah, if you're a collector, it's tough.
They're collectors, so you pretty much get it as is. And if you want to alter it from there, that's up to you.
If you're good at jerry rigging, then you're all set.
Right. Now the other one next to it, the John Deere, was one of their early crawler tractors. That's basically the same tractor engine and front that their wheeled farm tractors had, and they just converted, or they made a track and undercarriage for it, to turn it into a crawler. There's an interesting story with the John Deeres. John Deere didn't build the first John Deere looking crawler. It was built by the Linderman brothers, I think about 1939 or so. They were buying the engine and main component of a John Deere B, hand start B model, and they were putting their own undercarriage and tracks and stuff on it and selling them as Linderman crawlers. But they, I think, were painted green and yellow, just like the John Deere colors. Well, after a few years, John Deere realized that they were missing a big share of the market by not producing these tractors themselves. So early into the 40s, they started producing the crawler tractors and loggers, and that was pretty much the main draw for those things, where the logging industry wanted them to replace horses and stuff. They were really maneuverable in the woods, and they could pull extremely large loads. They could get through wet ground. Basically, a lot of them had no dozer blade on them. They were just basically made to pull with, but adding a blade on the front would help the loggers open their roads up and keep them smooth. So they were real popular, and then farms would use them too to clear land and stuff like that.
And in that
and
era,
highway departments.
most farmers were burning wood at that era anyway,
Exactly,
so they had to get in their woods. And
right, right. And the other one next to it is a later model industrial John Deere. That's been rebuilt by Bob Smith. He's the owner of that one. He lives in, he's out on Rand Hill. He was from Shazy, but he rebuilt quite a bit of that yellow model there, engine-wise, and a lot of the track had to, undercarriage needed to be reworked, and he's done a pretty good job on that one. It's kind of difficult to move these around. They're heavy, they're cumbersome, they don't load up on trailers that easily, and they mark the lawn up. So you're kind of limited. It's not like a wheeled tractor. You can roll them all over.
No,
but,
you start running those those treads over your soft ground.
But it's nice to see them show up here. You know, it just adds another variety to it.
And of course, John Deere is still very much in the industrial business, local supplier. But how about the farm type, the green and yellow ones? Are they still making those, or do you have to go to the industrial if you really want one?
No, they're pretty much all industrials now. The green and yellow was the start of it. That was the onset into the dozer.
So then,
then eventually it just
went into a separate.
Right, all industrial now, pretty much. It's another division of the company.
Okay, let's move along. We are down the road a ways, and who we got now?
This is Clyde Doty from Peru.
Clyde Doty, how you doing?
Good. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, you say that now, but wait till I get done with you.
Yes, probably.
Doty, how spell that?
D-O-T-Y.
Are there many Doties around? I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the.
Look
like you've been around for a couple of years.
Yeah, I've been around for 70 some odd years.
You raised around here?
Yes, born and raised here.
Oh. Okay, well, what you got to show us today?
Well, they're called.
Don't wander too far here.
Oh, excuse me.
Just tell us.
These are what they call a two-wheel plow cultivator. They're made by Montgomery Ward's. Makes these first two red ones.
Now you say makes.
Yeah, they're the manufacturer of them.
Now, I know Ward's went out of business, but we were watching the Price is Right the other day, and there was a thing saying from Montgomery Ward.
Yeah, well,
are they back in business, or what do you know?
I have no idea.
No idea.
But see, these were back in the 50s, 60s, back in there, and they come with all kind of attachments. They got plow, lawnmower, rotary mower, cultivators, tillers.
Now, a lot of times when Ward or Sears or somebody sells these things, they're made by somebody else. Any idea who these were actually made by?
These here were made by Montgomery Ward.
Themselves? Yeah.
Yep. I've got one I think is on the other side of the camper. Is made by Montgomery Ward, but it was no, they were made by Simplicity. See, Simplicity went into the same business, but Ward made them for Simplicity for years, and then Simplicity made their own after a while.
Okay. So these are basically tilling and.
Yeah, they're snow. You can even buy a snowblower with them and attachments. I've got attachments for almost every one of these.
Do you use them?
No. No, they're just for show now. I do that as a hobby. And then you go down to these bluish green ones.
Let's wander closer here. Yeah, these. Now, is that the color they came?
Well, that's just debatable. I say it's this color. The guy that got that one run says that's the color. It's somewhere in between.
A little difference. I don't know if the camera will pick up that subtle little difference here that we can see with our eyes.
These are called Panthers. They were made back from 1954 to 1963 or 64. They've got a Chrysler rear end in them. They run with 7 horse, 5 horse, and a 4 horse engine.
They got a big rear end on them.
Yes, they are.
Is it politically correct to say that? They got a big rear end?
Yeah, it's all right to say that as far as I'm concerned. They got an awful lot of power with that rear end like that. They used to buy them up and tear them apart, use them for drag cars, the rear ends out of them, because they've already been shortened up.
So they're Panthers,
The Panthers.
and that was the name of the company, or?
Yes, that was the original company was Panthers. Then they sold out, and they called the last ones they made were called Pennsylvania Panthers.
Where were they sold? They weren't sold around here. were
Maryland. The factory was in. Can't remember the name of it now. It's on the tag on one of them.
they? Okay.
But they were made down in Maryland, and Virginia and Maryland's where they were made.
Okay. Yeah, how about parts? Are you able to find parts these days, or?
Well, parts are not bad. If you get on the internet, there's a lot of clubs that are restoring a lot of these old antique tractors, and you can buy and sell, swap parts. I haven't had any problem finding them. Dandy distributor up in Maine has the franchise that got all the dies and stuff, and they've got all kinds of parts.
Oh, so they'll even make new ones then.
They make new parts if you need them.
Oh, that's good.
So that makes it nice.
Yeah. Now what is that little? I don't know. Maybe let's relocate the camera here. Hang on. Okay, we have moved a little closer. This has got a mower attachment in the front. Tell us what we're looking at here.
You're looking at what they call a Zazu. It's a front cut mower, and
It looks like a Yazoo.
yes, and that's got a 16 horse motor on it. It's a 1942.
1942.
That was made in 1942. That one there. I've just done restoring it, and looks pretty good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that must have been made early 42, because that's the start of our
Well, the
involvement in the war. And
The engine's not the original engine because the engine's a later model engine, but the rest of the machine is a 1942.
But I know they stopped making cars even in the war years.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So this was an early riding lawnmower. Is that
Yes,
the purpose
it was.
of it?
Yeah, that was an early riding lawnmower. That was a zero turning radius.
ZTR back then.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
It runs like a charm.
Way ahead of its time.
Yes, it is.
You don't use this one either, though.
No, I don't use any of these. I just
Play with them.
play with them, bring them out, put them out for show once in a while on my front lawn.
Make sure everything works. And
Oh, yes.
maybe cut a swath of grass
Yeah.
once in a while just to make sure it's working.
Now, if you
got-
want to see my pride and joy, the other side of the camper, I'll show you one.
We'll have to be careful here. My wife's here. Tell me about those handles on the left here. The three handles. Do I see three? I see one laying down.
Oh, okay. That puts the mower decking gear, the one laying down.
Uh-huh.
The other one is a forward and reverse
Okay.
mechanism. The other one raises and lowers the deck.
Okay. And speed. You just got forward and reverse. There's no gas pedal or anything.
No, you got a throttle right there, and that's it.
Okay. So you could move it on the. with
Oh
the
yes,
throttle.
yes. It moves right along.
All right. Nice little Yazoo.
It is.
All right. This is not yet your pride and joy. We're getting closer. We want to keep people watching here. So
That's right.
The pride and joy is still coming up. But what are we looking at with this red one?
This red one is called a Panther, but it's called a Pennsylvania Panther.
The Pennsylvania Panther.
It was made in the early '60s. That's one of the last ones made back in that year, right in there.
Sounds like a Glenn Miller song, doesn't it? The Pennsylvania
Sound does,
Panther.
sure does. That one I've got to do some more work on. I don't like the paint job on, so I'm going to redo that one. But that's originally they were painted red. The last one's made of them.
Okay, so no argument here on the shade of red, though. Right?
No argument at all.
Okay. And it's got that big rear end on it.
Yeah,
You can-
it has the same. They're all the same. It just when they sold from Panther to Pennsylvania, that was the name they used.
Okay.
But it was still the same tractor.
Kept that big butt.
Yep.
All right. Now for the pride and joy. A little drum roll.
Yes.
All right. You're gonna provide? No, Fran's not providing any drum roll. He's just there grinning. What is this rusty?
This is a Kincaid. It's it was made between 1928 and 1931.
Now you realize if I took your pride and joy here and put it on my lawn, the town would come and tell me to move that off my yard. If I put it on the Plattsburgh State campus, they'd say it's a piece of artwork.
That's right.
Now, but in this case, this is your pride and joy.
Yes, it is. Because it's original. Everything on it's original. It's got the original engine. It runs, it goes. And to me, that's when you can find them that old and they still run and go.
Now it's got those big iron wheels in the front.
Yes, it
that's
is.
how it works. So
You got one wheel in the front, and the extra is an added wheel if you want to. If you're cultivating, you don't want the extra wheel.
See, that comes on and off.
Yes, them bolts.
Okay, so it's a front wheel drive then, huh? So that gives you more power if you had
Right.
both of them on. Is that the idea?
That's right.
Now your center is still that front
Is
tricycle type wheel.
the front with the
Is
motor.
it hard to keep it going in one direction?
No, it's not.
Because you're behind that one wheel, and so
That's your
it
drive
pulls
wheel.
evenly. It pulls evenly then.
Yeah.
Now who made this?
That was made by Kincaid. They call it a Kincaid.
And
That was the name of the company.
Where are they out of?
That I can't remember.
Okay. You didn't know there was going to be a quiz today, did you?
No, I didn't.
And run by gas?
Run by gas.
Now is that what's that on top there? Is that a little filter? What is that little
That's
water
the,
tower sticking up
That's
there?
the air. That's the air filter in the front. The other one's a gas tank.
That little gas tank.
Yep.
How long could you go with that?
That I can't
thermos full
tell
of
you
gas?
until it runs out.
So it's mechanical. It works now.
It runs beautiful. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
A lot of greasing. How do you?
No, there's not that much greasing on them. There's no grease fittings. They're all squirt can oil.
Oh, you'll squirt a little bit in here. And,
Yeah.
Well, can you make that cluck cluck noise? I can't make that noise.
No, I can't.
Gordy can do that good there. Can you, Brent, you any good at that grease can? Gordy can make that noise. Wish Gordy was here. He'd give us the oil
sound effects,
the oil can. The orange one yours?
The orange one's mine.
All right, that's a nice one. I had to go for a ride on that around town.
Yes, that's all right. That's just like the 3 yellow ones you saw down on the other end.
Uh-huh.
The only thing is, this one, you ride on it. You got the same attachments. You've got the mower. See, I've got a mower
Yeah, I see
set
you got
on it right now.
Sickle there in the front.
Takes a mower deck. It takes cultivators. They say it takes a plow, or not a plow, but it takes a rototiller,
Uh-huh.
snow blower.
Okay, what year is this?
That is that's
You'll get back to us.
about
You'll get back to us.
1950s.
1950s, give or take a decade.
Yeah, and that's made by Montgomery Ward.
Oh, that's a Ward, okay.
Yeah.
Now, I got to question the color combination here. The wheels weren't really that color when it came off.
No, that's just my decide to paint them that color so people will see it and come and look at it.
It probably glows in the dark too. Huh?
Pretty close.
But the orange was pretty much the color.
Pretty well the color.
Are there any decals that you can get that says Wards on them or whatever?
That black tag on where the shifter is says Montgomery Ward's on it.
Okay. All right, and I assume that little golf cart is yours too.
That's for my wife to ride around on.
right around the fairgrounds today. That's helps
Yeah.
you get around here. Well, we appreciate you chatting with us. Anything else before we move on?
No, I appreciate you stopping and looking at them and showing them.
Wow,
That's what they're for.
okay.
Maybe we get more people interested in doing this.
This is an annual event every year,
Yeah.
and it's usually today's the 12th, usually that weekend after the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And you're usually competing with the Mayor's Cup, which is happening today.
Yes.
All the sailboat people are out by the lake. The radio control folks are in Beekman Town on the Rooney Road in their radio control cars. The Tupper Lake Woodsmen, right now we're having a giant parade in Tupper Lake for the Woodsman Field Days. There's only so many weekends in the summer, and
Make good use of them.
that's right. And folks who say there's nothing to do in the small towns probably don't look around very much.
No, they don't, because there's plenty to do if you want to stop and look around. And you don't have to go very far away.
No.
There's a lot around here.
That's
You
right.
just want to stop and do it.
Yeah. If you want to experience our quality of life up here, there's a lot of examples of it all through the summer. Thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Right. Alrighty, we've got a hay wagon here with snow sleds.
Yes, people will bring any kind of old stuff in. Snowmobiles have been showing up here the last few years.
Don't they know this is gas engine and tractor show?
Well, there's a gas engine in the snowmobile, so I think that qualifies it. Galvin. These belong to Dave Babby out in Peru. They're early models from the 60s and 70s. I know he's got a lot more of them, but he decided just to bring 3 of these out. The first one's an early Snowjet. The middle one is an early Bombardier Skidoo. And the one on the end is one of his favorites. John Deere even got into the snowmobile market through the 70s and into 1980. And that's one of their models probably in the middle of their production. But there's a lot of these around in barns and garages still hanging around up here.
Yeah, a lot of them got put away one winter and never took out again. So.
Right. And once in a while you can actually find one in the condition that these are sitting in. They've been used very little and they've been sitting in the garage, and once in a while somebody gets lucky enough to find one.
If you've got an old piece of equipment like that that is rusting away somewhere, and it's of no value to you, or you want to find out what the value is, you could contact the Antique Gas Engine Club, and I'm sure they tell you somebody who's a collector of that item.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Is there a contact number?
Yeah, there is contact numbers. Let me get you one. Now, in the past, we've had people donate items. We have this huge gas engine that was donated to the club.
Yeah.
People just didn't want to see it go to waste, so they...
That was sitting in Clarence Baker's yard for
Right,
a while, and now somebody else has possession of it.
Right, but the president, Sam Sorrell, his number is 643-8254. And
call after 11 at night.
Right. And another good one would be to call Duke. He's 643-6821.
Okay,
Those guys.
Sam Sorrell
and Duke Gepner. Duke Gepner.
That's a 2P Gepner. Geppner.
Right.
So if you're looking it up in the phone book or on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've had other people donate items like drag saws and just different things that they had no use for, but they would like to see it go to an organization that would display it.
And part of being an officer means you got to take care of that?
Well, we do have a small core group in the club that house these things for us at different places. Everybody kind of takes a turn at it. You know, if anybody has an open shed or a barn with a spot in it.
Yeah, this isn't finding room for baseball cards here.
It's a rare thing to find a room like that today, but we do manage to keep it undercover.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's move on, Frank. All right, I feel guilty. I hear the PA announcer back there. It sounds like there's a big pedal car pulling contest going on, and we're missing it, Fran.
Well, yeah, we are. It's one of the kids' events out there. It sounds like they got a few people involved in it. What you're looking at here, Calvin, is an early combine built by Case. Kind of the first production models of self-propelled combines other than being tractor pulled. Dave found this one in a barn. This is pretty much in its original condition. It wasn't Dave Babby, one of our members from Peru. Him and his father Leeward own most of the collection you're going to be looking at here next.
Now, what's a combine?
Well, what this does, it'll pick up the crop. If it's hay, it'll chop it. If it's corn, it'll separate the kernels and hold them in a hopper. It basically processes the product that's going through it and does like a couple jobs in one. This is designed to pick up pre-cut hay with the head that's on here now. It looks like this is a hay head, and you can change the front of it to a corn head and combine corn with it as well.
Yeah, that would have 2 or more
I think
little chutes where the corn would go in.
Right, and there's a big hopper up on top that holds the corn kernels, and then when it's loaded, there's an arm on the other side, a chute that swings out, and it unloads it into a wagon waiting for it, and then that carries it off to the storage area, and then it just keeps going and just continually fills the hopper.
Now, do you know if this one would also do oats?
I think it probably would. If Dave was here, he could answer a little more of those questions for us, but...
Well, he's going to have to be here on time next year.
Exactly. But it's an early model. You know, their first designs on these, they had a lot of open mechanisms, a lot of belts and pulleys and sprockets and chains. There was a lot going on here, and a lot of maintenance involved in keeping them, you know, operating and stuff. But this even has a few modern features. It's got power steering on it, so that as far as the operator goes on it, he's got a fairly comfortable machine to be working on. because you spend hours and hours on these things. Once you start harvesting crops, you basically got to go and go until you're done, just like today.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at a hearing this week. The railroad's trying to close the railroad crossing so the road would be blocked up on the Hayford Road in Champlain, and they're saying, well, the farmers would go through and they'd let us know when they're going through, and we'd make sure the tracks were open for them. And they said, during the daylight hours. Well, I live next to a big farm, and let me tell you, they're going all night long when they're getting the crops in. So it's not a 8 or 12 or 14 or 16-hour day. It's a 24-hour day sometimes.
Right. What you're looking at here, Calvin, is a New Holland baler that has been self-propelled at the factory. It's called a hay cruiser, built by New Holland. It still has the same 4-cylinder Wisconsin motor on it that would typically be up in the front, driving this large wheel in the front of it. But the way they redesigned the unit, they put the motor in the rear, they added a transmission and drive system, and they added 2 steering wheels into the front that are hydraulically controlled with power steering. The operator sits up behind the hay pickup head, and all his controls are right around him to bale hay with. The only thing I can't imagine is how dusty it must have been for that operator right there.
That's the first thing that came to my mind.
Right, because that hay is just being lofted up in front of you, and on a hot, dry day, you're downstream from all the chaff on this thing.
It's just coming right in your face.
Right.
It's dusty enough when the baler is 15 feet behind the tractor without having it right there in front of you. I don't think a farmer created this one.
No, they were short-lived too. They weren't in production very long, but they did have the ability to pull a wagon behind them, and at least you could offload your bales into one wagon or so.
Yeah, the self-propelled is nice, but it's like the combination TV VCRs. Well, they're great, but if one or the other breaks, you're out of business. And the same thing here. If the self-propelled part breaks or the baler breaks, the self-propelled doesn't do you any good. You're not going to pull your side rake with this thing. So
yes, in the other case, you would simply unhook it and put another tractor on it and keep going.
Right.
Now, if you pan over to the left there, you'll see a conventional baler.
There we go.
That is the pull behind type. And basically, these two machines are identical, other than the way they're designed. The pull type versus the self-propelled. They both do the same job.
We have moved again, and we are near the grandstand, and later on I'll show you the crowded grandstand that we've got here. What's your name?
My name is Jean Easton.
Jean Easton. Easton?
Easton.
Oh, okay. And what are you doing here today?
Well, we're announcing for the children's pedal tractor pull.
Uh-huh.
We have them grouped up in different age class, and right now we are at the 10-12 class, and we have a pull-off.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, we have a tie of 30 feet with the large pedal tractor pull, as you can see, and they're doing some more adjusting on the weights and everything for the...
Are they going to be going side by side? Because normally it's just one at a time.
No, we have the bigger class will be the bigger, larger pedal tractor pull, and the smaller class for the smaller children, as you can see, we have the mini pedal tractor pull.
Uh-huh. But right now we're having a pull-off, so are they going together at the same time, or?
No,
separately?
they will do one at a time.
Who are they?
All right now we have the toss-up between Matthew Akey and D'Artagnan Bayshard.
All right.
D'Artagnan Bayshard.
D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan Bayshard, okay.
D'Artagnan, thank you.
He knows you a big fan of D'Artagnan Bayshard?
Not really.
Not really? How about Matthew Akey?
Sort of.
Sort of, okay. All right. You're going to be cheering for somebody. How about you? Who are you cheering for?
Matthew Akey.
Matthew Akey. All right, we've got a couple of Akey fans here. All right. Let's relocate that camera and get ready here.
Ready for the pull-off, and this is Matthew Akey, 10 years old. Come on, Matthew. Come on, Matthew. Pedal, pedal, pedal. Come on, Matthew. You can do it. You did 30 feet before.
Oh, his father's pushing her. Is that fair?
Yes, it is. Just a little help.
Just a little help.
Good
okay.
job, Matthew. Good Good job. Let's give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a hand. Come on, Matthew. You can do it. 25 feet from Matthew. Nice job, Matthew.
With the camera rolling.
We encourage him as much as we can, as you see there, Calvin. A little help along the way never hurts.
As long as that doesn't get on the back.
Right. You know, the rule book hasn't been written here yet, so we can pretty much get away with anything we want.
We're on the fly with the rule book.
Right.
Oh no, the two fans in the stands have left here. I wanted to show the... This isn't exactly your demolition derby crowd here.
No, it's early in the day still, but we like to get these kids started early with stuff. So
Yeah. Before it gets too hot.
What they're on right there, Calvin, that tractor he's jumping on is a converted snapper lawnmower. The engine and mower deck were removed, and it had a pedal section put in it. So you actually pedal it to make it go.
Oh, so they don't bring their own pedal. They gotta use the one that's here belongs to the club.
Right. We supply the pedal tractors, and the sled behind it is actually a small version of what the large tractors pull. As he increases his length down the track, that weight comes up and makes more weight on the boat that he's pulling. It makes it harder to pull. So the further you go, the harder it goes.
Leo's helping both of them.
Yeah, Leo seems to be being a big help out there today.
Equal opportunity cheater here.
Right. Well, he's the president and the guy in charge of the pole, so he's pretty much got the rule book in his pocket on this one. So.
He's headed to the 30-foot mark. He's doing good. He hasn't stopped yet.
The Bayshard kid's going to beat his own son. His own son's going to be mad at him.
He's well over.
Yeah. Well,
Nice
I'm
job.
not sure. We're going to find out what his length is here.
32 feet.
32 feet.
for
Looks like.
D'Artagnan. Let's give him a big hand.
I think that's the winner.
There we go. We have a winner. D'Artagnan Bayshard. I think that's the kid who said he wasn't a D'Artagnan Bayshard fan. That's the kid we talked to. And he wasn't even cheering. He was cheering for Akey.
No, he wasn't quite sure.
He was cheering for Akey. Oh.
Now the smaller one next to it, Calvin, that little Ford is an actual pedal tractor. And we reduced the gearing in it somewhat so the kids could pull easier with it. And that's got a smaller sled behind it. You know, that'll with less weight, so 5-, 6-year-old kids can handle it.
And later on, you got the garden tractor pull.
Right along, because we have
Right.
the long
have,
garden tractor pull coming right up after.
That's coming up soon here. I see a few tractors out there lined up for it now. The way we do this, there's a stone bolt type sled back there behind the other equipment you see. And you start off pulling it with nobody on it. And as you make your way down the track, people step onto it every so many feet to increase the weight on it. I don't think they're going to let you on it today, though, Gal.
Neither me nor Leo.
No. Well, this is a pretty interesting thing coming up, too, here. There's not really a lot of different classes or anything like that. Like we say, there's no rule book here on any of this stuff, and no big cash prizes. So
this antique gas engine club exists on its own rules. There's a wild and crazy bunch here, right?
It's just basically coming out fun.
Brad is 13 years old.
We got room for one more here. Brad Izzo is gonna. What's he gonna do here?
He's gonna go. I think this is a different age class they've jumped up into here now. So you've got an older kid on here, and we'll see how well he does.
If he does too good, Leo will jump on the back instead of pushing.
Right, instead of pushing along, he'll act as a brakeman.
And he's off and running. He's looking good. Brad, nice job. Pedal, 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 pedal. Come on, Brad, you can do it.
I think he's dug in right there.
All right, Brad, nice job. 30 feet.
All right, we have come to a saw.
Yes. Early attempt to saw wood mechanically.
Is that a mechanical man up there?
I think he might be half and half.
Long way from it. What's his name?
This is Brian Tuzignoff from West Shazy. He's one of our members. He's got quite a few pieces here today. But this device here is called a drag saw.
Now, if I said Tucson, would you answer? Or?
You got it.
All right. You anglicize it a little bit there.
Basically what you have here is a buck saw, a two-man buck saw on the end of this device, where two men would actually saw the pieces off that log for firewood. But what they're doing here is they've mechanized this thing with pulleys and wheels, and it's driven mechanically with an engine or a tractor. Yeah. It's called a drag saw.
Today I'm the
He's the
horsepower. What is that about? What is that about? 1 foot, 1/4 horse or so?
A quarter horse.
Right. Now,
looks like a Shetland pony to me.
as this machine is working, that arm probably strokes, probably 2 or 3 strokes per second when it's running.
Pretty fast,
Yeah.
So make short work of it there.
Right. Now, Brian's standing on the operator's platform. From right there, he can lower that blade down onto the log.
Okay, let's move in closer here. We can. Doesn't look like he's too dangerous. I say.
No, you can lower it down onto
lower it down. Normally, just the weight of the blade and stuff. Normally, you just let it go down. You don't have to actually put pressure to it.
Just let it feel it.
Let it work its way through the log, and then this would be where you would actually engage this part of it. You're running it off there, and then this got basically a pair of friction pads to.
Okay, can you see that, Judy? If not, we can relocate. Let's relocate.
As you're running it off the belt pulley of an engine or a tractor, then this would be your clutch to engage the remaining system. It's got a pair of friction pads or brake pads, in essence, to engage it, and then you just let the saw lower down to it. You don't really have to put pressure on it. Just the weight of it will do it. And if it was running, I'd be glad to give you an active demonstration.
Okay. Usually, is there another person who's behind there pushing the log?
The operator can ratchet it forward.
Okay, he's got it right there. Okay.
The other operator would basically utilize that pole, which has a set of teeth in here, just to keep the log from ratcheting or moving around too much, binding up your saw.
So you got somebody on the end of that pole, and normally.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-man operation?
For the most part.
2-person operation, I should say.
Brian, tell us a little bit about where it came from. It's local out of Vermont, isn't it?
It was manufactured in the Morrisville foundry. I know they started business in the late 1800s. I don't know exactly when they got into manufacturing these. And I purchased it 4 or 5 years ago at an auction in Rennie Fournier's. It basically was complete as you see it now. The only thing, the frame and stuff needed to be reboarded, but other than that, all the serious parts were there already.
All right. And before the day is over, it's going to be up and running, right?
We hope so.
The day it doesn't work is the day you're here to show it to everybody. It probably worked great last week. Duke and Fran are trying to get this one here operating, but you see that motor, that gas engine motor running, and those pulleys are turning, and this is always danger here whenever you're involved in this type of equipment. And of course, once you get the blade going, there's danger with that saw. But these gas engines are something you'd relax around. They're something that you got to be paying attention to and knowing where it is and where your hands and fingers are at all times, and where your clothes are. If you had a loose piece of clothes that get caught in there, you could be in big trouble. There are some of these things, Fran, that I don't really want to get too close to. This doesn't look like the safest operation in the world right here.
Well, this is a good demonstration of what it used to be like, with open pulleys and belts and everything else.
No guards on that saw?
No, exactly. This is owned by Duke Gepner. He's going to give us a quick demonstration of it, just to get an idea of how these things actually work.
How to cut an arm off.
Well, exactly. That's why it was so easy, you know, years ago on the farm. People got hurt and would lose an arm or a hand or something.
I know, and one of our most popular shows, probably the most popular show we ever did, was with Jimmy Misek and his sawmill. And he talked about having an uncle who lived in the Cooperville area who had just one arm, and he lost that arm as a teenager, falling into a saw like this.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's not a lot of protection around stuff like this back in the day. This is a portable sawmill or saw rig that's designed to go around and saw cordwood to heat your home with. It's set up on a wagon so it can be brought right out to the woods or to your neighbor's house if you worked out with it. But it basically saws wood versus doing it by hand. And it's being operated by a stationary gas engine. That looks like an old Fairbanks Morse, probably 1920s or 30s.
Okay, and that little thing that Duke is holding is that's where the wood would be on.
Right, that's the table.
You would lower that, and there'd somebody be on the other end most of the time to catch the piece that's cut off and toss it aside. Otherwise, you'd have a pile accumulating there, and less chance of something catching and being thrown if you've got somebody hanging on to the end that's being caught.
Right. It takes a few people to do it, to operate it safely, and then and make the wood production. You know,
it always used to scare the heck out of me when I was a kid and they were burning wood, and they would set something like this up with a tractor on the pulley, and even though the saw did have a protective shield on it for most of it, you're still exposed where the wood is hitting it.
Exactly.
And there's always little pieces of wood in there and so on that you could step on and lose your balance, and it's just a very, very dangerous setup. But this is, again, this shows you the way life used to be, and why so many people were so happy to start burning fuel oil 50 years ago.
Right.
Or beyond.
Or even buy a chainsaw after a while.
Yeah.
But you still find one of these things every so often stored away in a barn or whatever.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of farmers use a similar thing to sharpen up fence posts now. You know, so.
Yeah, some of them still do that with them. They're really good to hang onto the post and sharpen the tip.
Yeah, big pencil sharpener, but not the safest pencil sharpener ever invented.
No, I don't think so.
All right, this is Duke Gepner, 2P Gepner. There he's lowering the, what do you call that?
That's the table that the wood would lay on.
Table, yeah.
Into the wood pile.
I knew what it did, but I didn't know the technical term. Table. Right. All right. And this would lower the wood, and it'd slice the wood off.
Right. You can see the blade being exposed into the table. And it would saw the end of the wood off, depending on what length wood you were trying to cut. You know, stove wood, usually 12, 14, 18-inch wood.
Yep.
But with 3 men and a pile of wood, you could really make a large pile of wood in a hurry with one of these.
Yep. You'd have to have everybody paying attention to what they're doing, and you're only as safe as the guy working with you in many cases.
Exactly. You want to have the main guy operating that table and keeping an eye on everything going around him, because he's got the important job of forcing the wood into that blade.
Okay. We're going to move on. A lot of people will be burning wood now. If you want Duke to come cut your firewood for you, give him a holler.
Right.
Duke Gepner from Peru. We've moved down a bit. That's a Ford. I don't know if it was a Ford or a Ferguson, but it's a Ford. And this is who?
This is Bob Smith from Rand Hill with a 1950.
Formerly of Chazy.
Right, formerly of Chazy. What he has here is an anniversary edition Ford tractor. 1953 was Ford's 50th anniversary year of being in business. And this tractor, they called it their Jubilee for that anniversary. It's a 1953. It's the next step up from what the 8N and 9Ns were. This is the tractor to follow those. What he has on the back is a portable saw rig that's tractor mounted and runs off the rear PTO with a short belt. And it does the same basic thing you saw Dukes do.
And see, what he's also demonstrating is the wood underneath. That will show you how you could trip over something.
Right.
Underneath his feet. But here he goes. He's cutting some chunks off.
Little demonstration pieces. Typically, that would be like a length of firewood, and then somebody would catch it and throw it off to the side.
Yeah, you wouldn't cut it pancake size like that. All right, so that's
that was a good little live demonstration.
Shows you how it does it, and there are some shields on there, protects most of it, but you got to have the blade exposed, otherwise you can't cut the wood. So
exactly, yeah.
But again, you can see with the power of this here that a human body wouldn't last too long in coming in contact with that. Whatever part was there, it was gone.
Human tissue's got no resistance against stuff like that.
No,
that's for sure.
Not at all. Okay.
And the saw rig is an actual Ford implement as well, a Dearborn implement that Ford made for that tractor. And that tractor has their early 3-point hitch on it. which was actually designed by Harry Ferguson, designed the hitch, and Henry Ford put it on his tractor. So they had, back in the day, a gentleman's handshake agreement that I'll put my hitch on your tractor and we'll sell it together. But that worked good for a while between the two of them, but then
once Henry wasn't there no more.
Well, Henry was still there, and Henry wanted to pull away and have his own tractor and get into more of the market for the profit on it and stuff. So once the agreement was over, Harry Ferguson went his way and continued to build Ferguson tractors, and Henry Ford continued on with his 8N and 9N and 2N tractors, and then the Jubilee model followed that afterward. But the same basic design. That
the Ford and the
hitch
Ferguson,
right.
but even the tractor itself, the Ford and the Ferguson, the same color.
Right.
And
same color. They look quite identical.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that hitch that's on the back, that 3-point hitch, is still in use today.
Really?
That's pretty much the standard.
So he did it right.
Right. The standard hookup on modern farm tractors today, other than they give them different categories because of the larger tractors now, but it's the same design.
Well, I hope that the Ferguson family is still reaping some of the benefits.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something that I would have, maybe not this particular one, but I would have seen in my yard growing up as a kid. It'd come in once or twice a year, usually, maybe just one time. Same time. What is it, Fran?
What we have here is an International Harvester thrashing machine, which is set up as a stationary machine. It would be belted to either a large engine or a tractor, and you hand tossed your bundles of oats into it, and it would separate the oats from the straw, and you'd end up with your grain on one end and a huge straw pile on the other end. And not every farmer owned them. One farmer in the area would have one, and they would go around and have what they called thrashing bees, where each day or each weekend or whatever, they would have a location they would set up at and do the guy's oats and stuff on his particular farm.
And another thing that they would do, we'll go back to the thrash machine, is that farmers that lived within a mile or two of each other would get together and do the corn in a similar way. They'd all get together and go out in the field and throw corn and bring it back and get their silos filled. And the same thing here. And the tough part is there's only a short little window in there when these crops are ready to go, and with the rain coming and so on, it's probably a tough thing to please everybody, to get everybody done. Because if you were a neighbor farmer and this guy was over at your place today with the thrashing machine, well, chances are you were over there helping that guy, because that farmer would be over there helping you tomorrow or whatever. But to get the people in the order and saying, we're doing this guy first and you second, and it's going to rain tomorrow.
Right, you would want to hope that when your day came along, you had good weather to go ahead and get your oats thrashed. But you're right about that. All the farmers grouped up because many hands made quick work of this, and it was a lot of work to continually bring in the oats to be thrashed and then take away the finished product.
Looks like we've got some more equipment coming in over here, and it's a 2-day event. We'll mention that again. We'll look at the thrashing machine here, but it's a 2-day event, and it's usually that first weekend following the 4th of July weekend. And it's here at the Clinton County Fairgrounds. And what do you charge to get in?
I think it's a $3 donation, and kids are free at the gate.
So you can't go wrong. You can't. It'll cost you more to get here than it will to get in the gate. So.
Right. I don't know what you can go look at for $3 today, Calvin.
Yeah, they do have refreshments available. A few souvenirs and some flea market type items are here. So you can satisfy a whole scope of people, and you know darn well, as long as they're not demonstrating something particularly dangerous, you don't want to let the kids wander too far around in case one of those saws is operating. But outside of that, the kids just love all this equipment, whether they're 3 years old on up, you know.
Right, and the people that own a lot of it are welcome to let kids climb up on the operator seat and have a look at things. Now, Calvin, as we were walking towards this thrashing machine, you made a comment on, a little bit about the history of this thing.
Well, I don't know a heck of a lot about the history. I know it was here 2 years ago when Babbies were demonstrating it. And at that point, and I was reminded earlier this morning when I heard somebody mention it, it belonged to my uncle, Romeo Trudeau, on Cumberland Head. The Trudeau farm, very prominent there on Cumberland Head, and this apparently was his thrashing machine, and somehow the Babbies ended up with it, so it's nice to know that this piece of my family's history is still out and doing its thing.
Right. You know, there's a funny story with this too, Calvin. When the farm ended up selling off, this thrashing machine was left in one of the barns, and Kent Lapierre and his brother, his older brother, were the two that this was handed down to, and they wanted to hang on to it for, you know, reasons that it's been in the family forever. And for some reason, they were selling equipment on the farm. This thing got accidentally rolled out of the barn, and the guy thought it came with everything else he had bought. And when they found out that the machine had been taken out of the barn, they tracked it down and went back and got it.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they apparently had a change of heart, and the Babbies ended up with it. And it's nice that it's not just rusting away somewhere, that it's being put to use. And a lot of these, I imagine, were the metal was used for scrap pieces, and you know.
Yeah, a lot of them didn't survive the scrap drives, that's for sure. It was pretty interesting when we first got this thing running and demonstrated right here on the grounds. They opened up the bins where the belts are stored, and there were mice nests all over throughout this machine. And once they started running it and spinning the wheels and stuff, the rats really started to run then.
You're not talking about the people here. You're talking about real four-legged rodents here.
Right, real mice. They had a nice little home out of some of those compartments in there.
Yeah.
Later on this afternoon, they will have this thing belted up, and it'll be a live demonstration on thrashing. They'll actually send some oats through it, and you'll see how it's loaded and what the machine does and the finished product coming out of the end on it.
Yeah, I was here, as I said, 2 years ago, when they putting pulleys on all those belts and all those pulleys, and every pulley and every belt's got a different purpose, and it's an engineering feat just to get everything hooked up properly. All right, let's go see if Gene Chauvin has showed up yet.
Okay.
What are we looking at now, Fran?
Well, right here, these gray McCormick Deering and Farmall tractors are the very beginning of International's tractor production. The narrow front one here, this first gray one, is called a Farmall Regular, and that is the actual first row crop tractor of its design. International had the first one. You can tell it's a regular. There's an open steering mechanism on the end. You see the steering gears in front of the radiator? When you see those open like that, that lets you know that that's a very early Farmall tractor. The ones that came after that had an enclosed gearbox up on top. But these tractors were designed in the 20s. And basically they were cultivator tractors. They would hang cultivators on them to tend to their row crops. That's where the word row crop comes from. But they could also plow their field and tend to their hay crops and stuff like that as well. You know, you could mow hay with them and do all your farm chores. But the main chore was to cultivate your corn and keep your crops growing in the field. The one next to it over there, the larger wide front one, is a 2236 standard tread tractor. That's really meant to be a stationary power plant with that large pulley you see on the side. That would be a good tractor to run a large sawmill or even that thrashing machine that we looked at earlier. A lot of the machinery back in the day was belt driven, so all these old tractors had that drive pulley on the side to work as a stationary power plant. This tractor also functioned well for pulling large plows and discs and wheelbarrows and things like that as well.
Had iron wheels back then?
Well, right. The early ones did have iron wheels, especially during the wartime, but they did eventually come out on rubber. Now, some of these early ones did come out on rubber as well later on, but steel wheels were the prevalent type in the very beginning of them.
And of course, back then, most of the country roads weren't paved, so you didn't have to worry about what those big pointed things would do to your road. But you wouldn't want to get them out on the pavement now, because they would really tear up your tarmac.
Exactly, the old steel wheels with the cleats on them. They were tough on the ground. I don't think we have anything here today that's got steel wheels on it. Tony Trombley, I know, has a few that are still on steel, and once in a while he brings one, but for the most sake, everything's been converted to rubber here. Now the front tires on this large tractor here are converted. They actually cut the iron rim off on the spokes and re-welded a rim on that would accept a rubber tire. And the front and rear of that large tractor both have what they call cutoffs on right now to convert them over to the rubber. Whereas the same on the narrow front regular tractor here too. These are cutoffs as well.
And of course, we have to remember that, particularly in the 20s, but even on up into the early 50s, these tractors were replacing the team of horses. And on our way here, Judy and I were coming down to Pellerin Road and Country Dreams Farm. A couple of the horses got loose. They were trying to bring a couple across the road, and one or two that didn't want to cross decided to cross on their own. So we got a little taste of life from beyond the tractor, right, before the tractor.
Well, we've moved along here now to another spot. We have a gas engine display, and this belongs to Leeward Babby from Peru. Leeward's a strong member in the club, him and his family, and they brought a lot of stuff here today. What can you tell us about the engines and the equipment you have on the trailer today, Leeward?
Well, two of those engines I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah, I would.
McCormick Deering LA and McCormick Deering LB both came from Fran here, and I was more than pleased to get those engines. And we hooked them up to little pieces of equipment here as a display. One closest here is sheller, corn sheller. And we'll have demonstrations later today, but then we take the shell corn, and that's on the other side is a small grinder, and that'll grind the shell corn up into a meal. And as I say, we'll be having displays here later on today. And the engine in the back is had a kind of a special birthday last year, and my kids got together and got me this hit and miss, my first hit and miss motor. I always was skeptical about getting one because I didn't understand them. But that thing runs like a charm, and I was so pleased to get it as a birthday gift.
Any idea of the origin of that, the make of it, or anything like that?
That's a deal of valve. The color's not right on it. It's supposed to be green. Someday I might restore it and put it to its proper color. But right now I'm just happy it's running.
Now your boys told me that was on a vacuum pump for milking, right?
No, that's this one.
Oh, that's this one here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the vacuum pump deal here, then.
My latest purchase is this Taylor engine, and we had problems getting it going because it needed rings, and it's very complex to put the piston back in once you get it out. But anyhow, this engine will create vacuum and run the milkers. Farmers use those before electricity hit the rural area.
Now, Leeward, it looks like it's portable. Do they actually bring it into the barn and push it up and down the station area? Where would they set it up?
All stuff that I put together here to make it portable. I don't know if it was stationary when they had it. Probably was. But I made some handles for it with a couple little wheels just to be able to move it around. So today I'm a little anxious. We had the engine going, had good vacuum in the tank, but I couldn't get the cover to seal on my milker, so I don't know if my milker will run yet.
Well, I guess we'll find out later.
Yeah.
On that,
So hopefully we have a little bit of time today to just get that going and give demonstrations.
All right, thanks, Leeward.
All right.
Okay, what we're looking at now is an international 8 horsepower famous engine, 1908 model is what the boys were telling me here. This is owned by a family, a local family that's been around for quite a while. This engine is one of the first internationals that actually didn't ran on spark ignition. The ones before these ran on a hot tube up until 1906 or so, when they developed electric ignition, which this particular model has. It's considered 8 horsepower. The tank on the back is how it's cooled. It siphons water through that tank, through the engine, and the hot water trickles down on that screen back into the tank for cooling. Now, Lee, I think you know the people that own this engine, right?
Well, yeah, I know Dave Sullivan. That probably would be the grandson to the person that owned this, but...
Fran Sullivan, then.
Fran Sullivan,
from
you're
Sullivan
right.
Orchards.
Yeah.
In Peru. Right.
See, you know the history maybe better than I do, but anyway, we were glad to have them giving us permission to bring it here today.
Right. This engine's basically on loan from the family today to be to be displayed, correct?
And just a unique piece of equipment, and of course I'm always looking for that type, but so for him to let us use it or show it today is really nice of him.
Right. I would have to say too, Lee, that this is probably the oldest piece of equipment here today, or one of the oldest, wouldn't you say?
One of the oldest.
It dates back to
1908. Yeah, I don't have any tractors that old.
No, I don't think anybody's got a tractor that old. Yeah. Yeah. But these were real popular on the farm. Your first mechanized power right here.
Yeah, for only an 8 horse, that's a real heavy machine. You know, even your smaller ones, your 3 horse, you can't hardly carry around. But this, by looking at the wheels there, you know there's weight. They're kind of towed in.
That's at least a 500 or 600 pound engine then, or more probably.
Oh, more, a lot more.
Yeah, let's point that out. That this is not a horseless carriage here. This was pulled from one spot to another. Just to move itself with those wheels full.
No, the pole that was on it was to hitch a team of horses on it, to pull it around. So,
and it looks like it's pretty much on an original cart type thing.
Yeah,
too,
right. And well, we're hoping later today we'll get it going. My son David got it going at the shop, so I think we'll probably hear it running later on today.
Great. Okay.
What farm was this used on, Fran?
Well, Kelvin, did I tell you you could have gotten a stagecoach ride today?
No.
Well, you know, you have to go to church and go to town to trade your goods and all that every so often.
Well,
so,
sure.
Well, this stagecoach is owned by Lee Babby as well. It came from Frontier Town. I think a few years ago they auctioned off 3 or 4 of these things, and he ended up with one of them. And they'll have a tractor. They shortened up the pole on it so that it could be pulled by a tractor, and they've been giving stagecoach rides the last couple of years here too. So
you don't have to pay the admission at Frontier Town to stagecoach ride. Did they have outlaws come up and hold it up?
Well, you and I are here to take care of that part, so right.
Okay, we'll come driving up in a couple of tractors and guns a-blazing. Leroy Babby, he'll collect anything, that son of a gun.
Yeah.
All right, who we got here? We got Gene Chauvin, who's missing in action on us here.
Right.
We got Neil Chauvin written on there. And,
his brother Neil and Gene on the other one. Right, the gray one is a Ford 800 owned by his brother Neil, 1955. This kind of came after the Ford Jubilee from 1953. It's a little bit larger model. It's got more engine power. It's got added hydraulics to it. It also has a 2-stage clutch on it, which gives it a live PTO. So there's a lot of modern devices on this tractor that really improve it a lot. And over here, the red narrow front is owned by his brother Gene. This is a Ford 700. Gene was telling me earlier that this tractor is kind of a limited number. There weren't a lot of them in production. It's a row crop design. These things do really well on the tractor pulls. They're the way they're situated with a narrow front, less weight out front, more weight on the rear, and a lot of engine power. These things do really well pulling.
Do they have a lot of tricycle fronts on the Fords? All the Fords I saw were wide wheels.
Right, Calvin. Most of the Fords you do see are wide wheels. That's what makes this narrow front kind of rare. There weren't a lot of them built. The row crop design.
How about that color?
The color is the actual color for the year. I think early 60s the Ford line was all red. The Workmaster line and the Ford Powermaster line were all red. But there was only like 2-year period that they used those colors. Most of the time they were gray and red, and then eventually they ended up becoming gray and blue on the later model ones.
Now, I would consider that more of a case orange than a red. You call that red?
I'd call that red, but you got to be careful around here, Calvin. You can start an awful argument talking about tractor colors and paint colors. That is kind of an orangey red color that Ford kind of singled out. It's not red, it's not orange, it's kind of in the middle.
Well, I think in my Crayola box that would be an orange red. Not a red orange, but an orange red.
You must have had the large box
then.
then.
I got the 128 crayons. I still got them there. Well, 2 of them were broke, but most of them are.
You know, they're probably worth a little more today than they were when you bought them.
I am pulling on your leg there.
Now, a little further up here, we've got Gary Rivers' little John Deere L 1938 model. This was the smallest farm tractor that John Deere produced at the time. I think it's only about 8 or 9 horsepower. You know, it would serve the purpose on a really small farm. It would replace 1 horse or 1 mule. It was kind of limited what it could do, but still in its day a very handy little tractor. And then the one next to it over here, the Farmall Cub.
We went by this John Deere here, and the owners are going to say, what about us? We can at least look at it.
All right, okay, we have a John Deere A. This is owned by Donald Lord. He's in the club as well from Saranac. He's been working on this for the last few years to get it in operating order to be able to bring it to the show. I don't think he had it here last year. This may be the first year he had it here. Last night we had our parade at 7 o'clock down Route 3, and a lot of these tractors were in it, and I remember seeing Donald on this one as well.
The tires are getting a little ripe there, aren't they?
Well, you know, you can get away with weather check tires, you know, when you're only displaying the tractor and have it for show. If you were to work those things, I'm sure they'd come apart.
It wouldn't take long. Well, Fran, I hope you remember everything you just told me, because we're reshooting. The audio went out. Farmall Cup.
Right. Well, not to be left out by International with a small line. This International's smallest tractor was the Cub. They came out in 1947. This is a 1948 model owned by Gary Rivers from Cadyville as well. It's a great little cultivator tractor. It was the smallest of the tractor line by International. But it was a really, you know, it would replace 1 horse or 1 mule, and very handy on a smaller farm. And there's still a lot of these in use today. There's a wide variety of implements that you could attach to it, for mowing hay and tending your garden, all sorts of things.
And it gives you that view because it's offset, the seat's offset there. You can see what you're doing.
Right, exactly. They called that Cultivision. That was their term International used for the style of it.
Cultivision and Calvin Vision here.
Just close it up, Calvin.
Well, we appreciate Fran Bushy taking so much time. Maybe if you can turn, Judy, and get this load of folks getting the ride here real quick here. There we go, a load of people taking a ride around the ground. Walk around as much as they used to, some older person.
Right, exactly.
You know, but anybody at any age, whether you can walk or not, enjoys a little hay ride here.
They certainly do.
Minus the hay, I'm going to sneeze.
Exactly.
Well, we've been here for almost 3 hours, but we've got an hour and a half worth of tape, and Judy wants to leave here. I'd stay all day, but I'm going to blame it on Judy. So tell all the folks we missed because of Judy. She'll never tape for me again. We do appreciate you spending the time with us, Fran, and we've just kind of touched on what's here. There's certainly a lot that we didn't get to see.
Right. This afternoon, there'll be a lot of live demonstrations. The guys that have them are getting them set up now, but after lunch it really gets busy. The crowd gets bigger and there's a lot more going on. But we really appreciate you coming today and airing this for us and letting people aware of what we have here. And everybody's certainly welcome to come. If you have anything you'd like to display, our club, we welcome new members. Everybody's welcome. It's just a great weekend.
It's a great family adventure, I'll call it, although it's not too adventuresome. It's just entertainment and enjoyment.
Right.
A very peaceful, nostalgic look at life in rural society from 50 to 100 years ago.
Exactly.
And a good, safe place for your kids, just unless the saws are running or something.
Right. Well, we try to
keep the kids away.
Right. I mean, there's enough adult supervision around to keep everybody away from stuff that they shouldn't be near. But it's there's no trophies, there's no awards. It's all come as you are. Some of the tractors you saw today are neatly done up, and some are still in their work clothes. So.
Yep. So all are welcome. Well, again, it's usually almost always the first weekend after 4th of July weekend.
Right.
And I assume next year, in the years to come, we'll be here at the Clinton County Fairgrounds. So that when the digits in the month of July get to closing in on 10 or in the 10s, you know,
it's usually the weekend right after the 4th every year.
So it's time to come here and enjoy it, because the 4th, if you add 7 to 4, you're going to get at least 11. So it's got to be got to be in double digits.
Right. Right.
So that's going to wrap it up. We're sorry Gordy couldn't make it today, but we got a death in the family, so it precluded him from being here. But I appreciate Judy Castine driving that camera and taping this for us. And if the weather's good, maybe we'll be back next year.
Okay, Calvin. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you.